If I were to ask you, what is the first thing a family member says to you in the morning? How would you respond? What about the most said word or phrase in your home? What about a question your parent always asks you? What about a question you hope your parents never ask you? There are some conversations that are just awkward, but then there are conversations that are just plain difficult to have with a family member. I'm talking about the kind of tough conversations you have to have when there's a conflict, someone's been hurt, you've made a bad decision, there are differing beliefs, or someone needs to apologize. It can be hard. So, how would you describe the way your family has tough conversations? For the last couple of weeks, we've been saying that your atypical family can be used by God to do amazing things in the world. But how? We've looked at the stories of Adam and Eve, of Abraham and Lot the last 2 weeks. Tonight, I want to draw our attention towards another family in Genesis. This story is about Jacob and Esau, which are Abraham's grandsons. Jacob and Esau were twins, but their story isn't a story of brotherly love. It was an imperfect relationship from the start. If you've never read the story of Jacob and Esau, I encourage you to do it. It's a great read. There's competition, there's jealousy, there's deception and conspiracies, costumes, heartbreak, and soup. There's a lot going on in their story. But here's the synopsis. With his mom's help, Jacob tricked his brother Esau into giving up something of great value. With his mom's help, Jacob tricked his dying father into giving him a gift that was never intended for him. Instead of owning up to his bad behavior and making things right, Jacob ran away again with his mom's help. Can you imagine being a member of this family? I mean, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of deceit and cruelty, all in this one family. But that's not the end of Jacob and Esau's story. Years later, Jacob is married and has children of his own. But he hasn't spoken to Esau since the day that he ran away, and now he's on his way to Esau's city. Knowing Esau has every reason to hate and maybe even kill him, Jacob sends messengers to Esau before him with plenty of gifts, hoping to show Esau that he's sorry. Jacob's messengers return with the message, Esau is coming to meet you, and he's bringing 400 of his men with him. I mean, as you can imagine, Jacob is scared out of his mind. He divides his people, he cries out to God, he sends more gifts to try and pacify Esau. I've had some tough conversations with my family before, but nothing like the conversation Jacob and Esau are about to have. Jacob knows he needs to make things right with his brother Esau, but who knows where Esau is coming from and what he's thinking. When conflict happens, but you're too stubborn or angry or ashamed or afraid to have tough conversations with your family, it leaves room for some ugly things to grow. Jacob sees Esau approaching and bows down before him, I'm sure just begging for mercy. It makes sense that Jacob was afraid to meet with Esau. Again, Jacob was probably expecting Esau to yell, attack him, and maybe even try to kill him. And that would have been understandable, right? Considering their history. Jacob had stolen so much from Esau and never made it right. Amazingly, though, against all odds, Esau didn't show up to kill Jacob. Instead, he showed up with open arms, ready to have a conversation. The story tells us Esau runs up to Jacob, wraps his arms around his neck, kisses him, and they weep together. They had to have some tough conversations, I'm sure, but Esau wanted to have a relationship with Jacob again. Jacob and Esau's encounter could have gone very differently, yet Esau's willingness to have a conversation with Jacob, even after what Jacob did to him, is pretty amazing. And it was absolutely essential to healing their relationship. God loves to see us living at peace with each other, but not a fake peace where we smile at each other and secretly hate each other on the inside. Like we learned 2 weeks ago when we read the story of Adam and Eve, God designed us to be in relationship with God and with each other. When we refuse to have tough conversations with each other, it separates us from each other. And when we hang on to bitterness and anger, it keeps us from having a closer relationship with God too. Throughout this series, we've been saying that if you want God to use your family to do atypical things, sometimes you have to be the first person in your family to do something atypical. That's what Esau did, and it's what Jesus teaches us to do. When you've hurt or been hurt by someone in your family, the typical response is to stay angry, to avoid each other, to get bitter. But Esau chose to do the atypical thing. He met with Jacob and had a tough conversation. Just like a tough conversation changed Jacob and Esau's families for the better, being willing to have a tough conversation can change your family for the better too. Every family has conflicts they struggle to solve or make right, but atypical families choose to have tough conversations in order to stay in relationships with one another. We'll talk more about that tonight on Zoom at 8 o'clock. I hope you can join us then.